in the conversation. He said it multiple times. What is this? Yeah, I mean, this is not even a debate tag. This is an incredibly childish thing that he did, which I think did not present him in a good light at all. So I don't know why anyone would look to this and be like, he was so composed.
What? You don't know what I'm talking about? Yeah, it was on the list. You're lying.
Yeah. I got a free Rolex hat from a friend of mine. I still wear it every now and then.
Yeah, and you're oh wow, who knew?
What? Like none of these are arguments. None of these are counter arguments. It was just like it was very interesting. Like it was basically just like childlike mockery, and I was fairly composed through it. Like I didn't really eat the bait because I think he was just trying to get something out of me in most of these situations. And if you notice throughout the conversation, there are moments where I unwind. Okay. But if you notice, the only moments where I unwind is not when he's like calling me an anti-Semite or whatever, or doing petty drama or this kind of shit. It's when he's saying something about Israel that I think is like repulsive or inconsistent with other things that he said about Israel that make no sense when you consider the past year-long conquest to deplatform pro-Palestinian voices. And that was the only time where I was like, dude, shut up. Like he was trying to provoke me, and I didn't really eat that at all. And I suspect maybe the ad-lib stuff was to get me to like pop back at him. I don't know why he also like made fun of me stuttering once. Like, dude, I don't make fun of you for having Tourette's. That would be ableist, right? Like that is an incredibly ableist thing to do. Even if this is like a totally different way to approach it, right? Like you're the way that you're carrying yourself is manic and crazy, not because of your Tourette's, but instead it's because of the things you're saying. And I think potentially he was trying to get me. He was trying to goad me maybe to like respond in kind, so he could be like, "You're being ableist" or something like that. At no point did he do that to Sammy. Of course not. That would look even more ridiculous. Destiny?
What?
Ethan, I don't think
Hasan?
I didn't bring up Destiny. You did.
By your authority, I will decide who's hallucinating. Hasan. Want to do propaganda, remember?
Ethan.
Hasan. Please, calm down. You're getting worked up.
I don't know why you're behaving in such a childish manner. Ethan, I don't think... Anyway, he did that a lot. But yeah, Ethan Klein, regarding the zone of interest comparison, so you're saying everyone living in Israel is living next to a concentration camp? Hasan, yes. Yeah, of course. But again, I know you are still not assuming good faith from Ethan after yesterday. You're too good, King. No, I don't. I did not even expect him to be that good faith in general. I just didn't expect how bad faith he would get. But it doesn't matter because like people who watched it, who already had preconceived notions of Israel Palestine, that have found themselves in this unique slotting ideologically where they think like Israel's doing a genocide, but also everyone that's resisting against said genocide are also bad. This is an interesting position that American liberals have because of the endless amount of Islamophobic sentiment, the endless amount of Western chauvinism that has been baked into their collective consciousness. Every single militancy, every single organization, every single standing military that has ever resisted against Western forces is always in the wrong until time has passed and they've maybe won some concessions or liberated their country, at which point it's appropriate. But while it's happening, while we're in the process, it's the age-old adage: liberals are for every civil rights movement except the current one. Liberals are for every single anti-war movement except the current one. And that's basically what it is. And there's a lot of weaponization of this kind of attitude from Ethan, whether inadvertently or deliberately. Yeah, people go, IDF and Hamas are in the wrong. It's not a hard concept, but it actually is an incredibly unnuanced position to take, because no, they're not both in the wrong. It's not a hard concept. One is a significantly worse group than the other. The IDF being the significantly worse group. Okay? That's it. And the reality of the matter is, many people don't want to recognize that, even though it is objectively true. The IDF is far worse a group than Hamas ever could be, whether it is the logistical prowess that they have, or even the fact that with all of the overwhelming power that they have done so much destruction to the Palestinian population, a civilian population. This is why I kept saying over and over again, this is why I kept repeating over and over again that, like, this is, like, Hamas would not exist if the IDF did not exist. Hamas would not exist if the Israeli state wasn't maintaining an apartheid state that is incredibly violent. Dude, him saying that if Anne Frank fought back or killed a Nazi would have changed his opinion of her for the worse, that was absolutely insane. I know. But even when libs decide that much later, a liberation movement was a good thing, they also whitewash it. Yeah, that too. I just got here, so sorry if you went over. Can you explain your views on permissibility of using unrelated citizens as prisoners? Did you mean it's a good war tactic? No, I'm not saying it's a good war tactic at all. I'm saying that there's no other way to take over a ship without, taking over the people that are operating on the ship. The treatment of the hostages is what matters in this situation. And yeah, it probably would have been better if they had released the ship crew beforehand. But I think the reason why they are actually taking over ships and disrupting commercial shipping and also combating against, fighting against even the American Navy that's trying to disrupt that operation, thousands of miles away from the American border, by the way. The reason why I think that is, it's not the best thing to do, but it's also the only thing that they have in their arsenal. So yes, I think that ultimately, and many people will agree with this, unless they are totally operating on the boundaries of like, well, these guys are bad and wrong because they're scary and America told me so. If you look at it from the framework of like genocide and who is resisting against genocide and what they are doing within the limited powers that they have, that they absolutely would have to come to terms with the fact that what the Houthis are doing in this framework, resisting against genocide, is correct. It is morally correct, even if some of the methods actually fall short of a standard that you fall short of your own personal standards and mine as well. I hope that 14-month subscriber understands my position on this, because there is no comparison between the Israeli occupying force and Hamas, especially because Hamas is a militant resistance group against the apartheid that is maintained by the Israeli occupying force. That is the major problem. The bigotry of low expectations argument Ethan was trying to use was unbelievable. Yeah. And the reality of the matter is, no matter what happens, you will always have an upper hand when you just posture towards pre-existing social conditioning. When you say, no, these are bad guys, these are terrorists, anyone who tries to explain what they are doing will still be considered bad and wrong. You're defending terrorism. That's it. And for more people, for a lot of people who don't want to examine the situation critically, because at the end of the day, they still have some unexamined biases living in the Western world, they are always going to look at this and go, well, it is at the end of the day like scary brown guys doing stuff, and I don't kind of like that. And that leads people to this weird expectation. It leads people to this weird expectation that Israel is simultaneously committing a genocide, and maybe even you recognize that there has been an apartheid for 76 years, but you shouldn't do anything against it. You can't do anything against it. And the people that are doing something against it are actually in the wrong. They're always in the wrong, whether it's because their own personal domestic affairs are in the wrong, like they're anti-gay, or there's the pink washing that obviously Zionists engage in, the pink washing of Israel, while also simultaneously saying like, well, these guys are homophobic and bad. And it's like, yeah, these countries have not been able to have civil liberation movements because they've been under fire and under blockade or under control over other colonial powers or other regional actors that are far more powerful than they are, because they're being backed by the most powerful nation on the planet, the United States of America. Yeah. But we'll do that. This was Asman's main criticism of you. He can't conceive of the idea of kidnapping unrelated people to try to stop a genocide, mainly because he doesn't see Palestinians as human beings. Yeah, of course, like the guy who initially was banned for like 7 days because he said Palestinians are a inferior culture that deserves to be genocided, are going to wait. Hold on. Hold on. I'm DMing Chris back on TikTok. Yeah, the guy who got banned for 14 days is going to, of course, be resistant inherently to my position. The debate was emotionally exhausting to watch because Ethan reminded me all the times I had to defend myself against a narcissist. I know a lot of people also infer like their own personal hangups or shortcomings or interpersonal experiences that they've had off of this kind of thing. And I think that's ultimately very parasocial on both ends, What about how many times he pulled up a clip that proved your argument or disproved his? See, that's the other side of this. Like, what is shocking about this? What is shocking about many of the instances? I will say this. Here, if you guys want to know, like, two of the areas that I think were, I'll give you what the areas that I think were just like super dominant throughout the entire conversation, and I'll tell you what my biggest L's were. Okay. In terms of the areas where my biggest, I guess, quote unquote W's were, there are, I believe, around 7, if not more, instances where Ethan basically agreed to my position and even went as far as to apologize for things that he has done in the past. So that's fairly significant. Most of it was from the context nuke. And I think that, that's not something to just like lightly cast aside, especially considering that this is supposed to be his pivotal work that he put a lot of effort and research into. There's also obviously many concessions he gave, which I think don't make sense when you factor in the way he has behaved in the past 15 months of this ongoing genocide. But there was also a bunch of instances where he basically admitted, yes, yeah, like I was wrong and I smeared you, which I thought was interesting. I didn't know really how to deal with that, but I don't think anybody actually cares on Team Ethan. It didn't come across like Ethan genuinely gave those concessions to you and instead only said it to move on since he kept saying he was bored of you. Yeah, but like there are so many moments where he just like instantly contradicted himself, where he was like, well, I don't Destiny directly. Okay, you talked to his podcast co-host who is engaged in a blackmail operation against people who have like come out against Destiny in his like sex pest case, right? Like, what do you mean? He uses that same community. He's his best friend. That is not like you've worked alongside him on numerous occasions, like, or even with the ADL example. Like, or even the CPS call. I was like, dude, you know my position on this. I don't believe the CPS call in and of itself is appropriate. I don't think anyone should be calling CPS on you or anybody for that matter just because they don't like a content creator. But like, can you please explain to me what my role in this is? And he kept, and then he couldn't really tie it back to me in any capacity aside from, well, you a week ago pulled up a snark subreddit. So I said, okay, can you tell me who called CPS on you? And he had nothing. He had to basically admit, and this is a pivotal part of his like victimhood structure, was the fact that my fans had called CPS on him. That's what he had said, right? Like over and over again. And he somehow tried to tie it back to me. And what's interesting about that is he had to basically admit that he had no evidence whatsoever that it was actually coming from my community at all, or even the snark subreddits. So, and that was, oh, by the way, this chatter saying, honestly, your only L was calling Gila, getting him to admit Gila is a terrorist or something. No, the reason why I brought that up was to expose the double standard, to showcase Ethan's Islamophobia, Ethan's racism in this process, because it plays a big role. I don't have the attitude, and I tried to explain to him over and over again, like what Gila had done was a night raid. And the only reason why I know what that looks like, what a night raid looks like, and what the actual express purpose of the Israeli occupying force is in conducting those night raids is because of Breaking the Silence. Breaking the Silence is an Israeli philanthropic organization, an Israeli organization that works against the occupation. And it's comprised entirely of former Israeli occupying force veterans. So, of course, I have interviewed people who have been a part of the Israeli occupying force, as well as interviewed people that have been conscientious objectors. So I don't actually hold people's social conditioning when they're young against them. I think that would be silly. It is entirely the opposite of my worldview. It goes against my worldview. I believe everyone can change their attitude. Everyone can change their mentality. My frustration was twofold. One, that he, on the one hand, washed that aside by saying she was 19, it's forced mandatory conscription, but then also simultaneously would turn around and smear a dude and call him a fucking terrorist, which a lot of people still keep claiming over and over again. If you want to get it right, you can get it right. I don't have an issue with, even if he was a Houthi, I would not have an issue with interviewing him, for the record, as I've said over and over again. But yeah, I know you were trying to say can you call Rashad a terrorist, for instance, but not Hila, to get him to understand the double standard, but it seems like you were just trying to call Hila a terrorist, I think. No, because I did say exactly those words, but I guess it gets lost in the conversation when the impact point is getting Ethan to say that his wife could be considered a terrorist just to move on. What is this? Getting love on TikTok?
Hasan.
Yeah, there is definitely a lot of that, but it doesn't matter. I think he has been using Judaism as a shield to deflect any criticism of his beliefs, and him calling you anti-Semitic is going to mean nothing when it's used against actual legitimate anti-Semites. Yeah. So, yeah, and he asked me how I feel about that as well, and I tried to explain to him, like, I don't hold people's past actions against them as long as they have learned and have grown from their previous positions, because I understand, as someone who lives in the Western world, as someone who lives in America, I understand how powerful social conditioning is. I understand how someone who's 18 years old will join the Israeli Defense Force from their perspective, right? I get that. I totally understand that. I understand how someone can find themselves in that position, but through the cruelty of their actions, like, they should recognize that this is wrong, or at least 10, 20 years down the line, they don't still maintain the position that what they did was good and that still continuously defend the Israeli occupying force. That's my issue. And for people who say, why don't you just like off the rip call her a terrorist or anything like that? I need you to understand something. Like, first of all, I'm talking to an audience of primarily Westerners who don't even care about the issue at hand, who simultaneously consider this to be a genocide because it is, but also only care about the drama aspect of it, revolving around a content creator and his own personal feelings. So clearly, in order to try to pierce that veil, in order to try to penetrate into their collective consciousness, like there is a way to go about it. Okay. Yeah, all of this just don't kidnap innocent people talk. Did Helicon not admit to partaking in an illegal raid that led to the kidnapping of innocent people, or did I dream that? Yeah, that's like, he was like, well, we don't know what they did. We don't know what the person did. And it's like, well, the point is they're not supposed to be there at all. So even if that person had like, it doesn't make sense within the logical confines that Ethan has cultivated, where he believes that, according to international law, that settlers are valid military targets, but also simultaneously, it is totally justifiable to do a raid on a Palestinian home because who knows, maybe they actually, exercised a valid military target? Is that, exercise violence against a valid military target? Like, that doesn't make sense. That is an inconsistency that he never has to address. And that is what I was trying to get him to address. Do you understand? Because if you believe that settlers are valid military targets, you also have to believe that the illegal occupation of the West Bank is completely, unconditionally unjustifiable, and therefore any kind of military action that you take against someone who is exercising their international human rights law of militant resistance against a valid military target, as he has said, then, that's illegal. It's the actions not of the Palestinian in that situation are illegal. The actions of the Israeli occupying force are illegal. Do you think they'll ever stop with this ongoing bullshit? No, because I think this is like about view counts for him in general. People even leftists seem to be struggling with the conversation around sexual assault in relation to the conflict. So those are the two L's that I'm gonna talk about. One, the conversation revolving mass sexual assault, systematic sexual assault directed by Hamas. I will be talking about that extensively. And then the other conversation that I think got lost in the weeds was, I feel like we talked past one another on the Avi Shlaim point, on the point about the Nakba being compared to expulsion and also voluntary migration of Jewish people from surrounding Arab nations. And I think on that one, we definitely talk past one another. And I want to like go back and relitigate it, or I want to go back and understand Ethan's position, because I think one of the main points of contention here always is the fact that Ethan will present something. Ethan will present my position in the worst possible framework to make it seem as though I don't believe certain things that he's bringing forward. And the reality of the matter is, there's never been a moment where I have denied that there has not been expulsions of Jewish people or pogroms of Jewish people, especially in the aftermath of 1948, especially in the aftermath of the Nakba. This is something that I have talked about as well, over and over and over again. But the problem, but the problem with the Ethan's framework wasn't that. There's two problems with Ethan's framework. One, that he believes that I'm denying that Jews were harmed in this process in surrounding Arab nations. I'm not denying that at all. What I'm simply stating is that the trigger point of this all is the Nakba, which is a planned and executed deliberate ethnic cleansing campaign which is done by one singular ideology, as opposed to the reaction of that from surrounding Arab nations, cannot be attributed, cannot be compared to one another, especially when you factor in the reality that some of these surrounding Arab nations and MENA nations weren't even autonomous at that point. They were literally under the rulership of Vichy France at a certain point, or they were literally under the rulership of or under the control of England at a certain point. So the notion that these countries had this organic or collective, hive-minded anti-Semitism that manifested and exploded is utterly ridiculous in comparison to a planned and deliberate mass expulsion campaign. And the Palestinians had nothing to do with the surrounding Arab nations in any way, shape, or form, regardless. These are totally separate countries. But the reality of the matter is, he could not see beyond the fact that they were Arabs. He could not see beyond the fact that these are all Arab nations and they were all Arabs that did this. It was the anti-Semitism of Arabs that caused Jews to become Zionist, which I think is ridiculous. He was reacting as if trauma is binary, yes, no, rather than realizing the scale and scope of these things are vastly different, as well as avoid talking about who was responsible for the infliction of those traumas as well. Yeah. And I think a bastardization of Avi Shlaim's perspective to drive home that point, because he got someone to basically clip from his latest book and his commentary key points that make it seem as though Avi Shlaim's ultimate perspective is that Arabs were forced to become Zionist is I think a great misunderstanding of a historian that has spent most of his work talking against that. Okay? His big point is, you know how there's a double Holocaust or a double genocide theory that a lot of neo-Nazis immediately implemented in the aftermath of World War II? This is known by scholars of history as the double genocide theory, that the USSR also did a genocide, and actually their genocides were far larger in scale and number, and therefore they are the worst party in World War II. It's a way to try to whitewash and launder the reputation of Germany, Nazi Germany. A similar perspective took place in Ethan's commentary, which is the double Nakba almost. Yeah, here's Spencer Gabb saying, I read the first two chapters of The Three Worlds after the debate. Avi Shlaim literally describes the fallacy of a double Nakba like this. The purpose of this narrative is to create a false symmetry between the fate of the two communities. The narrative is not history, it is propaganda of the victors. Read this excerpt highlighted from the same Avi Shlaim Ethan misquoted. Yeah, this is from Three Worlds, Memoirs of an Arab Jew. And this is from the prologue. It is impossible to make sense of this history without the regional context. Post-1950 Arab, Jewish, or Mizrahi history becomes a part of Israel's history and as such is divorced from its wider regional environment. Zionists are only obsessively interested in the first phase of the Arab Jewish history. They are profoundly uninterested in the second. Interested in the first phase is driven not by the search for truth, but by propaganda need to portray the Jews as victims of the endemic Arab persecution, a portrayal that is then used to justify Israel's own atrocious treatment of the Palestinians. A rich, fascinating, and multidimensional history is thus reduced to the quest for ammunition to use in the ongoing war against the Palestinians. This trend reached its climax with the manufacture of the narrative of the Jewish Nakba. According to this narrative, the forced exodus of 850,000 Jews from Arab countries after 1948 amounted to a catastrophe, a Jewish Nakba, at least on par with, if not more devastating in its consequences than the Palestinian Nakba. Variously called the Forgotten Exodus, the Forced Exodus, or the Double Exodus. The purpose of this narrative is to create a false symmetry between the fate of the two communities. This narrative is not history, it is propaganda of the victors. There has never been a moment where I have discounted that there was anti-Semitism that took place, especially during the pan-Arabic nationalist movements, where a lot of these Arabic countries that had aligned themselves with European colonial at the time in an effort to develop sovereignty and nation states, even though they previously were under the rule of the empire, for example. They did do that. And that was a big part of this pan-Arabic nationalist movement that created these nation states to begin with. Nation states whose boundaries were carefully constructed by Western superpowers. Okay? Guys, if it blips for 1 second, if I drop frames for like 3 seconds, don't, chirp about it being an F. That was just for like a second. Yeah. Honest history has to acknowledge the part played by all the governments concerned in causing this man-made tragedy. The main difference is that the Palestinian refugees, for the most part, were ethnically cleansed by the Israeli armed forces, whereas the Arab Jews, with a few exceptions, were given by Arab governments the option of leaving or staying. My book is both a personal record of a complex past and an essay with a political argument. It is a critique of Zionism from the perspective that is rarely heard outside of Israel. So, his pivotal work that Ethan was misquoting unironically seeks to address the argument that Ethan falsely presented in his context nuke, which is why I said I will have Avi Shlaim on. I'm working on it right now with some of my friends to get him on the broadcast to address this with his own personal words, okay? There is perhaps no better way. What? After watching the content nuke, I'm suspicious of your intentions, which sucks because I've been watching you steady for 2 weeks. But after your debate with Ethan, I went to his channel, seen that video. Yeah, if you get duped, if you get tricked by that, then I don't know what to tell you, my friend. Okay, yeah. Here's a couple things that he maintained in this. Here's a couple things that people do usually when saying Hasan is a bad guy. One, they'll say he's a socialist, but also rich, as though this is as at odds with the way I view the world or with anything that I've ever said. It's bullshit. The second thing that they'll always do is look at him revealing this scary thing. We got him. And the reality of that is you didn't find this. I said it. I said it myself. This is not a secret. If it was a secret, you would have encountered this in private conversation, in private correspondence. You found a clip where I'm talking to Deprogram, a podcast that is conducted by a bunch of people that I like, a bunch of content creators that I like. And in that conversation, I'm talking about something that I've always talked about, which is the importance of agitative propaganda. This is what I do. From a liberal perspective, I hope people understand that this is akin to the de-radicalization initiatives that I partake in terms of what? Oh, God. Great, man. Good job. Good job, Chatter. You're about to get fucking yeeted off the platform. So it's here. I'll give you a liberalized version of this. What do I do in terms of deprogramming or actively trying to de-radicalize right-wingers? Okay? Right-wingers. It's the same principle. Agitative propaganda is exactly that. When someone thinks all of their problems revolve around trans people and the existence of trans people, and I try to show them that no, it's actually a byproduct of the system that we exist under, capitalism, that's agitative propaganda. Propaganda does not always mean nefarious. I know in America it means nefarious, but it actually does not. Propaganda in and of itself is just telling a story. Okay, this is not something that I shelter. This is not something that I hide. Ethan misuses my brutal honesty in that regard, in terms of what I'm doing, to basically get people to think, oh, he's like lying to you. No, I think it's more honest. It is the exact same thing that I say when I tell you, like, I have my biases, and I will let you know exactly what they are, because everyone has biases, and I think it's important to think ahead of time so that people know exactly where you're coming from. That's the difference between someone like myself and, let's say, someone like Fox News or even MSNBC or CNN. Everyone has biases. A big part of what I do is trying to explain to you what the biases of mainstream institutions actually are, so you develop a better understanding of where they're coming from, what they choose to omit, what they choose to focus on in terms of their coverage. This is it. This is my job. Hey, what's good? Anyway. The question that I have for many, if they were to be duped by something like that, where it's like Hasan is nefarious, Hasan is nefariously sheltering his full perspective, why would I voluntarily reveal that in a podcast? That's good. I think the main issue is that you and your points are dense. It's hard to handle by a simple-minded person, bro. They just shut it down immediately, aren't listening. All of this still does not justify the genocide Israelis are committing against Palestinians. No history justifies the genocide. No, I agree. And I think that that is important to also recognize over and over again. And that is a major inconsistency within the argument that Ethan was presenting, where he recognizes that there is a genocide, but also simultaneously constantly looking for reasons as to why the Israeli government behaves the way that it has and historically behaved the way that it has. Problem is lowest common denominator audience response to quick gotchas, and I hate any nuance. I mean, it doesn't matter. I think that there was plenty of quick gotchas as well. It's just like that. It's one that I was able to achieve plenty of. The problem is no one really cares about that either, because everyone is invested in the conquest of drama. Everyone is invested in the conquest of like their favorite content creator, or maybe not even their favorite content creator, but like content creator that's going up against their content creator that they despise. Me in this case. That's why I saw this phenomenon of neo-Nazis, like active neo-Nazi accounts, openly singing the praises of Ethan Klein, a Jewish man. Right? There were so many out and about neo-Nazi accounts on Twitter that were like, this Jew destroyed the Islamo-Turk, shit like that. And the conversation revolved around him saying that like this, the bleach sword was fucking anti-Semitic, or Frogan's thumbnail was anti-Semitic. Like, these are not conversations that neo-Nazis would normally entertain at all. The reason why they were entertaining it was precisely because they like, oh, this is it. This is what I was literally talking about. Literal, actual neo-Nazis handshaking with Ethan Piker coming back from the debate with H3H3. This person's name is Haya Saka Aryan, Kaguya's top gal, a straightforward neo-Nazi, right? Like, does this not ring any alarm bells in Ethan's mind as a person who is Jewish, who has Jewish children, who is seeing the growth of anti-Semitism on the timeline, not realizing that these guys actually are more invested, perhaps for some nefarious purpose, in undermining me and my position here? I wonder what that reason is. I wonder why so many people who will spam W Hitler in chats are on board with what Ethan was saying. I don't think that any of these guys are going to recognize this, though. I think at this point, it's because it's so hyper specific to Ethan's own anger, and for guys like this, I don't think this person likes Ethan. I mean, they're a fucking neo-Nazi, right? Like, they probably spot Ethan. Many of the content creators, the drama slop tubers, have actually shit on Ethan quite frequently and generated tens of millions of views off of shitting on Ethan, sometimes anti-Semitically shitting on Ethan as well. And why are they now on board with Ethan? Is it because my argument is fucking awful and I am just completely wrong? Is it because they disagree? Is it because they also are on Ethan's side, where they also believe that Israel is committing a genocide, but also all these people need to shut the fuck up about it? No, it's because this is an opportunity for them to try and actively undermine the position of someone who they see as an ideological opponent, and they do not see Ethan as an ideological opponent in this regard. This would be akin to if I were to go out and align myself with the likes of Myron Gaines or with the likes of Sneeko. Okay? That is what this would look like, because Myron Gaines presents himself as being pro-Palestine, but he's a neo-Nazi. This would be akin to if I align myself with Candace Owens and then said, look, Candace Owens, even Candace Owens has found out that Ethan is so fucking stupid or some shit like that. That is what this would look like. If the role reversal here, if Ethan welcoming a lot of these neo-Nazis, a lot of these hateful people that have actually turned their crosshairs on him over and over and over again, if his community doesn't recognize that they're now welcoming these kinds of reactionary sentiments and that's not ringing any alarm bells for them, it would be akin to me unironically aligning myself with fucking Myron Gaines and Sneeko and Candace Owens, right? Or Dan Bilzerian. These are people with massive audiences, but I don't align myself with them. I actually spend a good deal of time actually shitting on their positions as well. Do you see what I mean? This is something that I don't think the drama girlies will actually understand it. This is something that I don't think the drama girlies will understand. That is a major issue here. Can I say the Twitter accounts of people I'm seeing defending either under my tweets are filled with these gross anti-black tweets, constant slurs, praise some of the worst creators on the internet, Nazi dog whistles, makes me comfortable with my own stances. Only Lord can help to this now. What? Only Lord can reply to this now? Ethan's allegiance was some of the worst reactionaries online. Simply because is so odd. Your sexual assault argument was the worst one to me as a survivor, but I've heard you talk about it, so I know where you're coming from. It did sound like you relied on court cases for sexual assault, which is ass, but watching your previous VODs, I know where you stand. No, I'm gonna get to that in a second as well. Because if you noticed, he did something very nefarious there. He basically I'll get to that. Hold on. But the short and sweet of it on that one was the shocking display of disingenuousness from Ethan on that part, where he said that I was denying. He said that I was denying the atrocity propaganda that Israel has committed when saying that Hamas-directed systematic rape took place, mass rapes took place on October 7. This is atrocity propaganda that is not new. This has happened throughout all kinds of settler colonial conquest. This is what the American settlers said about the indigenous population, right? This is what the Klan said about black people. This is always like you have to dehumanize your opponent in order to justify to the rest of the people that like the violence that you are going to subject them to is totally permissible. They're savages. They're barbaric, rapist savages. It is a trope for a particular reason. It is unironically the weaponization of sexual assault. The reason why I also found it particularly gross was because he demonstrated that he didn't even care about what I was saying, or he didn't even care about what anyone was saying in that regard. Simply was just like, oh, you're going to speak over this victim? You're going to speak over this victim? When in fact, the video that he showed of me prior to the victim speaking out was literally me recognizing said victim. There's never been a moment where I've said that there was no rapes that took place, that especially after October 7. I've always maintained the position that there is a likelihood that sexual assaults might have happened on October 7. But the problem here is that Israel has actually destroyed the evidence and made it impossible. And his counter to that was, oh, out of the dignity for the victims, there was no time for forensic examination. And that's ridiculous because you want justice to be served for the victims. That's what I was saying. I wasn't saying like it's not rape unless it's like prosecutable in court, pics or it didn't happen. And that's what a lot of people are saying in terms of my conversation around circumstantial evidence. The circumstantial evidence in this regard is not the same kind of circumstantial evidence you see in criminal litigation in an American court. This is a preliminary investigation that is supposed to open up the door to a full-blown investigation by the United Nations. That investigation has been blocked of Israel. That is what I was maintaining here. And the reason why it's important to note that is because a lot of the circumstantial evidence that they've actually brought forward in the UN report, by Israel's own admission, has now been undermined through forensic examination. I'll give you an example. It's like when you saw these gruesome images, when you saw gruesome images from October 7, and people pointed to them to say, like, no, this person is being raped. This person has been raped. And then those people, the ones that weren't actually killed in the process, came out and said that that did not happen to them. This directly undermines and showcases the importance of going beyond circumstantial evidence in terms of like analysis of footage. Okay, especially when considering that there was plenty of atrocities that took place on October 7. I've never discounted that. It is one of the most horrifying live streamed massacres before what Israel did, of course, which is infinitely more horrifying than October 7, considering what Israel's been doing is a systematic, full-blown execution of all Palestinians and their lives in the Gaza Strip with significantly more sophisticated machinery. But having said that, considering that this was almost entirely live streamed, there was a lot of evidence that instantly undermined secondhand accounts that took place on that day. Okay? But like I said, as far as Ethan utilizing this, like weaponizing sexual assault, it was so insane to me that he went to that length, especially considering that I'm, of course, going to be amenable to hearing his position on this if there's something that I'm oblivious to in terms of all of the reading that I have done on the mass systematized mass rape conducted by Hamas on October 7. But the worst part of this was he actually showcased the claims made by someone who I also have recognized, who I've never actually undermined the testimony of. Amit Shoshana, I believe, is her name. And the victim that he pointed to was one that I had actually talked about in the video that he showed. Prior to that. And then he claimed that she actually had been sexually assaulted on October 7. It was one of the victims from October 7. This is an important distinction to make. And he basically tried to present this as like, he tried to present this as like me denying rapes, when in fact, I was talking about a totally different subject. When people say believe all women, that is that's the whole point of Me Too, is to not reflexively disbelieve women, because that's precisely what people do. There's never been a moment where I've reflexively disbelieved a victim that came out. My question to Ethan was, who are these victims? What are their names that have come out? Because you might know something that I do not know from all of the things that I have read on this matter. And yet he actually didn't, if you noticed, he actually didn't bring forward any names, with the exception of the firsthand account testimony of someone who I had also recognized. And the secondary position that I have maintained always, which Ethan at a certain point also recognized that he went back on, is the fact that even if there's an endless amount of evidence and it's like verifiable, there have been mass rapes that took place, Israel's reaction is still unjustifiable. You cannot do a genocide. You cannot do a genocide on an entire population that you are the belligerent occupier of, because militancy in that process conducted sexual assaults. That is completely unacceptable. Nothing will make genocide acceptable. That is my position. That has always been my position. If you don't mind, I have a clarifying question about an article Ethan read during the rape combo. Yeah. He highly manipulated that segment because as supporters of yours, I was left confused. Hope you don't get undeserving fallout. No, it's fine. I definitely will get fallout from that. Are you kidding me? That was the entire purpose of that conversation. It was designed to invoke a response that can be manipulated in the aftermath. That is the real reason. That's why they went on a full court press on live stream fails and all these other subreddits that they actually brigade to say, see, this is what happened. But I think I still conducted myself as best as I could in that process. And I made sure that every single part of that conversation, I still kept saying, he admitted to lying. Dude, you were underprepared and naive. That's not true. He admitted to literally lying. Here, this is one of the examples, right? Here.
There's women that come out and said, I was raped.
What?
There are women on the record, on video, saying I was raped.
Like you're saying, you're saying there are multiple women that are on the record saying I was raped.
Correct.
And I asked him who these women were. And his only example that he used was Amit Shoshana, which was also a person that I had acknowledged by his own admission, which he openly admitted to lying about. The fact that this escapes people's consciousness is shocking to me, because in the aftermath of that segment, he openly recognized that he had lied. And he had actually smeared me as someone who did not recognize that sexual assault had taken place at any point. That is not true. So if you think that in and of itself was like a massive gotcha, you're falling for the attempts here. But I totally understand why it would be confusing in the process. You almost didn't use any clips to prove he's a liar, which is important to prove so people can actually listen to what you have to say, but you can make it up when you respond to a shitty video. Well, there's not anything I can do in terms of clips because, he controls the clips. And the part about this that I find unconscionable is the fact that he also turned around and made it seem as though the testimony that she delivered was one that I was actually diminishing when it was one that I actually had recognized. But then he turned around and used her as an example for October 7, a point that he was trying to make, which was that mass rapes had taken place on October 7 and there were victims that had come out. There have not been, from what I have seen, and again, I will go back to this once again, and I'm planning on doing when he kept saying don't speak over the victim, but he didn't give a fuck you were talking about the right to rape protest was actually discussing. Yeah, exactly. That I plan on going over this, going over that part, especially in the conversation, because I think it's important. If you recall, I think something very nefarious took place in the aftermath of October 7, as you guys know. Obviously, there were plenty of atrocities that Israel could point to, but they needed more, which is precisely the reason why they engaged in atrocity propaganda, right? 40 beheaded babies lit on fire with kerosene, and all of this stuff that took place. Out of all of the heightened atrocity propaganda that Israel had elevated, okay, there was... Many of them were immediately discounted, right? Many of them were immediately discounted by Israeli media, as a matter of fact. And the reason for why they did that was because these are real victims. These are real victims that were slaughtered, right? So obviously, if you're Israeli media, you have to give them the dignity. You have to give their family members the dignity of understanding what took place. And that's precisely why a lot of that was discounted. The only one that actually was left without any sort of counter position was Hamas-backed systematized rapes that took place on October 7. And I believe the reason why a lot of people were wary of immediately countering that position is because of course, like there's a high likelihood of rapes taking place, not systematized, but rapes taking place on conflicts. This is my position as well. This is what I said as well over and over again. Ironically enough, in many of the clips that he was actually clipping out of context, I was debating other chatters saying there is still a likelihood that sexual violence took place on October 7 because that is a commonplace event in all conflict. Okay? Having said that, Israel refused any sort of real investigation to take place, and the investigations that came a year after the fact showed or disproved a lot of the initial narratives that they ran with, and that is the issue. Okay? And the real reason why that happened, was because specifically because they wanted to do atrocity propaganda to justify the genocide. Why did you not bring up Hasan saying Palestinian women don't face systematic sexual violence? Wait, I did. I did bring that up. Anyway, and for the record, like, the reason why I brought up the 40 beheaded babies and flamed babies in their crib stuff is because Ethan and Gila have brought that up far, far, far after it was already it was officially recognized as propaganda that did not take place.
They went on a mission to kill as many people they can, no matter who it is, slaughter as many people as they could until they were stopped.
The mission was to kill civilians.
Yeah.
You can see their war plans. They went specifically to Kibbutzim to kill the inhabitants there. Those are not military compounds.
They flamed cribs with babies in them on fire. So, like,
come on, what are we talking about?
They went on a mission.
Yeah, like lit babies on fire and stuff. Like, that's not real. That's just like, why is that still happening? You know what I mean? Why are people still saying that? This is supposed to be an anti-genocide broadcast. Like, do you see what I mean? This doesn't make sense with the attitude that Ethan demonstrated yesterday, or at least like some of the things that he said yesterday.
More first-hand accounts. There's even a person that survived the Nova disaster. They managed to survive it, and then I think maybe a year later or a few months later, they ended up committed suicide because they couldn't bear to live having seen what they saw on that day.
Is there more than one person that committed suicide?
It might be more. For some reason, I don't know the exact number. I know there's for sure one that I know for sure, but there might be more. And I mean, the kind of stuff that they saw was like rape, gang rape,
mutilation, torture.
Yeah. So they had to witness that and could not bear.
Yeah. So this is like
they weren't first.
This is Gila Klein claiming that a No Festival survivor saw rape and gang rape killed themselves because they couldn't deal with the trauma. She cites this as a part of her regurgitation of the genocidal atrocity propaganda, saying there's so much evidence for it. She's referring to a suicide letter that was posted online claiming this over 6 months ago, which has been debunked as a hoax by Israeli reporters a day after it came out. Even Hen Mazik and other Zionist propagandists who shared this initial report were forced to retract it 6 months after the fact that this suicide letter was revealed to be a hoax and was retracted by Israeli media. Gila is still using it as a point in her commentary to justify all the things that unfolded. This is what I mean. Here it is. This is Adam Shafir. A story that ran in recent days about a Nova survivor who saw horrors and committed suicide did not leave a single dry eye. After trying to reach the family to tell their story, the search turned into an investigation. We will reveal tonight in the tube that it is a complete fake. It is not clear what brings people to invent like this, but to cheapen the real plight of survivors and to play with the souls of others is simply disgusting. Do you understand? Like, this is a real weaponization of sexual trauma. This is a real weaponization of fabricated stories. There are plenty of people who then also apologized. There are plenty of people who literally apologized and retracted their story with the suicide letter. But 6 months after the fact, she was still saying it. She was still repeating it. Okay? Remember, even just yesterday, a lot of the pro-Israeli outlets, what did they do here in the United States of America? What did they do? They claimed that Mohsen Mahdawi was actually a terrorist. Mohsen Mahdawi, the student activist who is a pacifist that was recently released from a detention facility in Vermont after being detained during a naturalization ceremony for the quote-unquote crime of being pro-Palestine and a student activist. What did New York Post and all these other propaganda rags put out about him? They literally clipped nefariously a court case, an accusation in a court case about him going up to random people and saying how much he wanted to kill Jews with an automatic rifle. There was an FBI investigation that was conducted into it, and the investigation actually revealed that this was unsubstantiated. It was ridiculous fucking made up bullshit. And yet they clip the part that the FBI investigation undermines that point, and yet they ran with that regardless. It's just lying. That's all this is. So for the record, with Amit Sosana and her testimony, this is where I disagree with Zay Squirrel, because it falls in the weeds here, because their perspective on this is that she never said it was rape. She said it was sexual assault. I don't care. I don't care to make a distinction between the two. Okay, you can get mad at me if you want, but I do think that it's valid to take her testimony as it is, even if she has changed it throughout this time. Okay, even if it's not a distinction that is important to me in this process, and it's also something that I've actually recognized over and over and over and over again. Now, the other side of this was the Zaka people that was used in the Sheryl Sandberg documentary. The Zaka people that were used in the Sheryl Sandberg documentary were known to be fabulous. They were outed by Israeli media once again to have lied. Okay? Look carefully how Sandberg withdraws back from horror. Yeah, so that's the other side of this. And I believe Ethan used one of the parts of the Sheryl Sandberg documentary. They didn't just lie, they posed bodies. I know, they lied, they posed bodies, they actually disrupted any sort of investigation from taking place. This was a major crisis in Israel at the time, immediately after October 7. I've seen you make arguments against victims being used as props without getting caught up. It wasn't just Ethan that derailed you, but you were vague in your response. I have to assume the attention was being in a larger audience and allow for some drama to keep less regular viewers entertained and learn something for the sake of Palestinians, but you got too caught up in the drama to make points I know you're capable of making. No, I don't think you watched the same debate that I participated in if you think that it was simply because I wanted to fucking move on and do drama. Are you serious? Anyway, the very fact that they keep saying that, like, I'm discounting the testimonies that exist is crazy, because there aren't. There are secondhand accounts that have been discounted at this point or are proven to be not true by Israeli authorities. I can't work with not even a third-hand account, but whatever Ethan is claiming is going on. Do you see what I mean? But I'm still, of course, there is for the record, I'm never going to automatically discount new information. If new information has come out that I was oblivious to, that I was unfamiliar with in terms of the numerous victims coming out through forensic examination in the aftermath, for example, as opposed to what has happened, which is the opposite. Because the bodies were moved over to a military facility, and the military facility did conduct some forensic examinations that actually discounted some of the genital mutilation narratives that people were presenting. Because the most extreme version of this is what Rabbi Shmuley was saying, if you recall, where he was like, Palestinians ripped the boobs off of Israeli women and played soccer with them and shit like that. A lot of that gets lost in the conversation because it's so incredible of a claim to make without any evidence whatsoever that the claim in and of itself obviously discounts the veracity of it. Christ, the New York Times is doing this again. Israeli hostage says she was sexually assaulted and tortured. I mean, I don't think that's a fake news. Hasan is a buy. That is like the most credible reporting on a direct sexual assault from. I think you can just point out the lack of evidence for systematized assault and most importantly talk about why you are disputing these claims in the first place, that they are used to support genocide. I feel like we can't definitively say what the scale of sexual violence was or wasn't on 10/7, so we can't seem counterproductive to weed on individual cases disproving one or the other. Don't roll over, but also don't get too in the weeds. No, you're absolutely correct. You're absolutely correct. Yes, 100%. Because yes, the mass rapes conducted by Hamas, like systematic rapes conducted by Hamas, or even mass rapes that have taken place, was a way to basically justify what Israel was doing to the Western world. Okay, to the Western world, it was not enough from their framework, from their perspective, that like they were doing a genocide because of all of the real violence and the atrocities that took place. Like that wasn't enough. So they had to do the barbaric rapist savages trope that settler colonial people who were engaged in settler colonial violence have engaged in the past as well. Nazis themselves have done similar things like Bloody Sunday. The Klan has done similar things with mass lynchings that took place and race riots, or rather not race riots, but like pogroms that took place against Black Wall Street, the bombing of Tulsa. If you recall, the bombing of Tulsa revolved around the same old tropes about how black men are violent, promiscuous, sexual beings, and then it was elevated. That pre-existing stereotype, that white supremacist stereotype, was utilized in the bombing of Black Wall Street, in the bombing of Tulsa. Okay, Emmett Till's another example. Like, this is precisely why I think it's important to also carefully go through these claims that are being made. And I think Ethan, on the other hand, was incredibly careless in the claims that he was making, especially when he literally found himself in a lie and openly admitted that he was lying about my analysis over the subject matter. But it didn't even matter to him to openly state that he was lying and smearing me, as he did in real time on this issue, because he knew that ultimately there would be clips that would get pumped all over the fucking timeline to continue the narrative, act like Ethan had actually presented real information. The only verifiable claim that he put forth was literally a claim that I also had read through and had kept repeating over and over again. Bloody Sunday was a sequence of violent events that took place in Bromberg, a Polish city with a sizable German minority, between the 3rd and 4th of September 1939 during the German invasion of Poland. Standing in the path of the German army's advance during the early days of the invasion, tensions quickly escalated in Bromberg between the city's sizable German-speaking minority and its Polish majority. On the 3rd of September, as the Wehrmacht was preparing to assault the city, members of the German minority, working in conjunction with the German intelligence agency, attacked the Polish garrison. Polish soldiers and civilians reacted with violent reprisals against ethnic Germans, who in turn reacted with more violence. A Polish investigation concluded in 2004 that approximately 40 to 50 Poles, between 100 and 300 Germans were killed. The term Bloody Sunday was applied to the events by Nazi propaganda officials who highlighted and exaggerated German casualties. An instruction issued to the press said, must show news on the barbarism of Poles against the Germans in Bromberg. The expression Bloody Sunday must enter a permanent term in the dictionary and circumnavigate the globe. For that reason, this term must be continuously underlined. Approximately 200 to 400 Polish hostages were shot in a mass execution in the aftermath of the fall of the city on the 5th of September. Additionally, 50 Polish prisoners of war from Bromberg were accused by Nazi summary courts of taking part in Bloody Sunday and shot. The reprisals compounded violence stemming from the German attempts to pacify the city and the premeditated murder of notable Poles as a part of Operation Tannenberg. As a part of the latter, the Germans murdered 1,200 to 3,000 Polish civilians in Bromberg in a part of the city that became known as the Valley of Death. That's it. Anyway, I got to pee real quick, but there's the content deputy. We'll take a look at that right now, okay? I think you need to watch Cavernicle's new video off stream. Ethan is seriously pulling us away from what's actually important. No, I think it's still, I'm not addressing the drama of it all. I'm addressing the fucking actual meat and the bones of the conversation and the disinformation that was presented. I got pee.
Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of Content Deputy. Now normally in a Content Deputy I would dance around in my cop outfit in the woods, but this video isn't going to have any of that fanfare. We're just going to get straight into it. I was hoping that if I made a video about Ethan, he would act like an adult and he would keep the attacks directed at me and Anissa. Unfortunately, I was wrong in thinking that because Ethan, in a desperate attempt to attack and smear Anissa and I, he started attacking our charity event.
I don't know if you know this, but last year they lost $250,000. To be charitable, you actually have to give money to charity, Hasan. You have to give money to be charity. It's like a slush fund for them.
Ethan and Hila are well aware that we raised $1.3 million for charity the first year of Creator Clash. The second year we operated at a loss, and I take full responsibility for that. We did band together. The community and the fighters involved ended up raising $175,000 for charity. It's been really disheartening to see how often Ethan will attack Creator Clash through us or attack us through Creator Clash.
Ian and Anissa, masters of putting on an event.
He's reposting random troll accounts that are very easy to vet. If you click on this profile, it has a bunch of Sam Hyde adjacent posts and it just hates Anissa and I. Come on, dude, you're one step away from calling me a cuck. Just take the plunge. He's highlighting this post that equates Creator Clash to a crypto rug pull. He's saying the event is gonna be worse than TanaCon. Can't wait for them to blame us for their failed event. Don't worry, Hila. I'm not going to blame you guys for anything Creator Clash related. I know you're terrified of taking accountability for anything, so that will rest solely on my shoulders. But I can't speak for the internet. The internet might actually blame you guys for it. Now, with this recent revelation that people are just going to use Creator Clash to attack Anissa and I, Anissa and I have decided to step away from Creator Clash. We have relinquished control to our business partners who ran the previous two events. They're very capable. They know exactly what they're doing. They run events on a regular basis. The event is still happening. Anissa and I just don't have any financial ties. We don't have any ownership. We are, I think just going to be known as the founders of the event. Yeah, I mean, I think it had to come to this eventually. I can't keep my mouth shut. I can't, I can. I just didn't want to. I want to be frank. I want to be honest. I was very quiet during the second Creator Clash because I was afraid of how that would impact other people. This year I said I'm going to do something different. I'm going to fight back if someone's trying to attack me. So that's what I did. And now I've realized I can't really have my cake and eat it too. It's either you're going to talk shit like a foul beast on the internet, or you're going to have a charity event. It really can't be both. I'm very proud of the event that we made with Creator Clash. It's still happening, June 28th. I'm just not going to be involved in it. Please, for the love of God, support this event. I feel like in some ways I'm like cutting off an arm so that I could escape the bear trap and so I can fight. Well, that's a bad analogy. You guys get it. We've already told all the fighters, and it seems like most people understand that this is the best move. If the previous content cop was entertaining to you, or this video is entertaining, or you like the message, the best thing that you can do, for me, is to support Creator Clash. Buy a ticket, buy a pay-per-view ticket, an in-person ticket, or donate to the fundraiser. I just want to see this event do well. You know, I didn't try this shit because I thought I was going to be a good boxer. I didn't think I would be an awesome event organizer. And, you know, now I'm finally back to where I started, which is making fucking content cop videos. I don't want to make this too ham-fisted, but I kind of do want to make it ham-fisted because I'm like, I spent my last fucking 4 years working on this stupid boxing shit. I mean, it was worth it, absolutely, but like, it's crazy that I've just returned to content cop. Having said all that, Creator Clash ticket link down in the description. Go check it out, buy tickets, support the charity, support the fighters, and have a good-ass time. I mean, ultimately, I think it's a good thing because I think I am meant to roll around in shit. I think me and Ethan are both meant to be rolling around in pig shit all day long, and other people are meant to do boxing or debating or whatever else. Ethan and me, pig shit rolling around type of fellas.
You underestimate my strength! I've got coach's strength! The will of Allah! I mean Yahweh! Yahweh!
I think the worst criticisms I labeled at Ethan is that he's a bad boss, a tyrant of a boss. I just implied that he was being taken advantage of by people either in his community or outside of his community, and I called him a bitch-made coward. That was like the summary of personal insults labeled at Ethan. Before Ethan even knew what my video was about, he was already framing me as anti-Semitic.
But he's like, no, actually, Ethan, the fucking Jew bag. Fuck this Jew bag Zionist baby killer, guys, right?
I don't know if that's what the video is.
I'm one of you. I fucking hate Jews too, guys. Let's get after it. Israelis have no right to defend themselves, actually. All Israelis are settlers, actually. What is he going to give me a history lesson now? Is he a historian? Yeah, he just discovered empathy, by the way, and only extends to the point where you're actually talking about Jewish people or Israelis. Then empathy stops and they should all be murdered. Bro's actually out there like Timothy McVeigh. He's running to the closest fucking kindergarten to blow it up. There's a Jew. I heard there's a Jewish.
That's not what Timothy McVeigh did.
They want all you guys to quit and for me to just be like alone, little Jew boy, alone.
Like Ethan under a year.
Like this doesn't make sense if your position is that like Israel's committing a genocide. You know what I mean? Like I need a lot of you to reflect on what we are looking at from the perspective of Ethan claiming that he is a defender, a stalwart ally of Palestinians as he presented himself as yesterday, and one that recognizes that Israel is committing a genocide. Because if you are considering what Israel's doing is like an act of self-defense, then you can't also simultaneously say it's genocide. You believe one or the other. And I'm inclined to believe that the side that he's heavily leaned on is the side that is Israel has a right to defend itself. And that's precisely the reason why I think he believes that there's a genocide was bullshit, specifically because he wanted to. He doesn't have any real positions in this beyond fuck Hasan. I'm going to try to make sure you look hypocritical, which I don't even think it didn't really work. And it ended up making him look inconsistent. Yeah, he says it's a genocide to diffuse your points. Exactly, which is so crazy. Just grow up, bruh, sad. Are you telling me this, or the 40-year-old man who's like using the backdrop of endless amounts of violence that he claims to acknowledge as a mechanism to fucking drive home his petty agenda, and claim that like his former podcast co-host is being, and all of his former friends are being incredibly anti-Semitic because they're critical of his behavior in this time, and not the Nazis that have found a comfortable home inside of the newfound H3H3 community.
Ago was saying he doesn't use anti-Semitism in that way. He's not a guy to call anything and everything anti-Semitic.
You know, in my whole life, I've never screamed foul on anti-Semitism. I literally have been getting this shit since the second I stepped foot on the internet, and I have never fucking ever done this, okay? So the people online, they're saying, oh, Ethan's making himself a victim, or Ethan's making everything about anti-Semitism. I've done this once in my life right now. But he's like, no, actually, Ethan, the fucking Jew bag. Fuck this Jew bag Zionist baby killer, guys, right?
I don't know if that's what the video is.
I mean, I get that he's scared and offended, but this was the whole fucking point of my video, Ethan. I was saying that you shouldn't be doing this. It led to me making this video in the first place. You were triggered by this CPS harassment thing, and then you immediately equated Anissa and I to it. That was sloppy, and that was horrendous, and it was horrendous for us. And now you're doing it again.
I'm gonna watch it live.
Should you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't care. But like, why?
I just don't think, I feel like you're gonna get really emotional and say something you regret.
Well, I've got the button.
Like, I know you don't have a problem taking it head on, but I just feel
Of course
like
not. Because I know that
you're
whatever...
understandably upset, and I feel like it might be a little...
Should we wait to talk about it, or you want to talk about it?
You should do it off stream. Because I don't know, this escalated initially because we were live and you guys were heated about, I forget what it was.
I just think it might be wise to watch it, think out your thoughts, and respond in a calm way. Because there's no chance that you don't get heated.
I don't need to fucking pre-watch this. I don't need someone else to hold my hand through it. Like, I'm ready to take on anything that these people have to say about me. He's like, no, actually, Ethan, the fucking Jew bag. Fuck this Jew bag Zionist baby killer, guys. I'm one of you. I fucking hate Jews too, guys.
You attacked us, so I attacked back, and now you're acting surprised and shocked, and you're doing it all on your podcast live. So naturally, you reacting live is you having an emotional reaction and seeing things that honestly are scary.
I just said, I vented about them not defending me. What the fuck is he, like, he's actually losing his shit and I just can't believe it, dude.
Should you call him up?
So go fuck yourself.
I agree. Fair weather friends who are so happy to be friends as long as they're getting something out of it.
Ian sucks for the same reason right now. He could say something
Spineless. Our POV is like, fuck everybody, and I don't want to hear any excuses. You're not my friend, and you never were, and you never will be. You never will be.
What's very insane about this content cop is I was thinking about Ethan's feelings so much in that video. I thought about the idea of like how I shouldn't be saying the term Zionist or Zionism in that video, because I was like, he has explained before that that's personally insulting to him and he doesn't like that. You know, regardless of how true it is, I was like, I'm going to think about Ethan's feelings and not mention this. Fast forward to him reacting to my video, he's just outright calling me a fucking Nazi.
Is it a coincidence that Ian really shaved his head just before doing this video and he's holding a swastika one? I mean, we can free Palestine without being a Nazi. You fucking Nazis. How about that? Well, this is the white savior, Ian.
This is the twofold problem here, because like from the onlooker's perspective, when Ethan is like making these claims and like using them against me for some fucking reason, there's a twofold issue. One, I think the claims are ridiculous, and two, I wasn't even there to fucking begin with. So when I talk about the fact that like I don't know what the decision making process was there, okay, I'm not saying that to like hide my fears, like hide my shame that I participated in this. And that's the way he tried to present it, right? That's the way he tried to present it as. And I was like, no, I don't think this is a real claim. I don't think this is valid. And also, I don't know why they made this decision in any... Like, I don't know why they made this decision, but I also don't even think that this is like a real fucking grievance that you are advancing. And it also didn't make any sense in the way that he defended this position, because Redditors claim you paid for this video you're watching. Well, oh God, I don't know why. I mean, yeah, they're Redditors, man. That's it.
Who's just found empathy, unless you're Jewish, of course.
Ethan, people are allowed to shave their head and not be called anti-Semitic. I mean, if you're going to critique his podcast or be pissed off that he personally insulted you, even that is enough to be called anti-Semitic. It's fucking crazy. Now, I don't want to talk about Hasan's sword. I don't want to talk about Hasan's sword hilt because Ethan himself basically admitted already multiple times he doesn't think any of us did that intentionally. and he would be right.
Do I think any of them actually like wanted to put a swastika in the photo? No,
Yeah,
no. I don't actually think that. The chances that they did on purpose is close to zero, right? So I'm not accusing them.
I picked up.
This is so consistent with the way that he has behaved for the past year, by the way. On the one hand, he says, I don't think it's serious. On the other hand, when he wants to use it as an argument, he's like, this is the most serious, most severe escalation of anti-Semitism against me. You are putting me in harm's way. All this shit. And it's like, so why are you accusing people of this if you don't even believe it yourself? And that was also something that we arrived at in the conversation when he brought this forward as his like signature own in the beginning, where he was like, the content cop was lame, right? You were feeling lame about it, right? And I was like, I don't know. I participated in a sketch, and I don't mind doing that. I mean, you've worn diapers on numerous occasions. Like, you're a comedian, you know? He also said he didn't actually think it was a swastika. Yeah, his position is untenable. Yeah. Look, this is the other point that I'm making, which I think is important to address here. Ethan's allegiance with some of the worst reactionaries online simply because they hate me is so odd because it directly undermines his position of someone combating anti-Semitism. It would be like if I hyped up Bilzerian, Fresh and Fit, Sneeko, or Clandis because they hate H3 or Israel. I know that these are people who also are anti-Semitic. I do not want fans of these people in my community unless they are willing to learn, unless they're willing to entertain an alternative vision of society, one where they don't think that Jews are responsible for all the fucking problems that they're foreseeing, okay? I work actively to try and deprogram people from these communities to make them understand that their grievances are ridiculous and their hatred for Jews is pathological. He's a pathological liar, which makes it hard to argue with him because you need a clip for everything you say, or else it will be the lie, just like he did about the 115 IG stories. That's a lie. I know. But I think what's really silly about it is that like his audience does actually fucking watch all of his slop, so they should know better, right? Is there no moment where like someone a foot soldier goes, wait a minute, I've been following your Instagram. You probably did actually post 110 individual Instagram stories about Hasan. You know, you have been posting quite a bit about Hasan. I mean, it was funny because it was shocking even to him. Like, that was what was hilarious about it, which was that it was literally shocking to him that he had done that. That should be a wake-up call. That should be a moment where he understood the depths of his manic behavior. Like, think about that. Yeah, he could not believe it. I think you're missing the point that he was trying to do. His entire purpose of the debate was to smear your image, regardless of how far he was reaching. He tried to get the public to label you an anti-Semite. He didn't have a counter argument for anything you defended. Yeah, I don't think the public thinks I'm anti-Semitic. I don't think the fucking neo-Nazis that are now celebrating Ethan think I'm anti-Semitic. Because if they did, they would love me, okay? So, obviously, yeah, do with that information what you will, right? You can't just keep saying someone is anti-Semitic without like actual real points of contention. And especially because, look, especially considering how seriously I take anti-Semitism in general and how much I talk about dog whistles, or even, as he made a joke about, microaggressions even, okay, which I did see a TikTok commenting saying I literally see him post stories every day about Hasan. Yeah. That, like, I think he was just like saying it was anti-Semitic because people were just criticizing him. And I tried to drive home that point.
a random sword in Hasan's room that was laying around. That could be the end of the discussion. You don't actually need to debate Hasan about the sword hilt.
He left
the
it up.
decision making
If
of
it was a
person
mistake, he could have
who I
deleted
am
it.
not.
But I'm not going to delete the photo because that would be indulging in your weird anti-Semitic fantasies.
We can free Palestine without being a Nazi. You fucking Nazis. How about that?
I'm done being nice to Ethan. I gave it a chance. My sincerity and my empathy in that last video was real. I was even equating to him having crash out moments in the same way that denims could have crash out moments. I think we're all capable of it, but he was using it in the video to suggest that I was making fun of his mental health.
Shouldn't we just assume his point is you're doing anti-Semitic things and debunk why your action and points aren't that, instead of point blank just saying we aren't anti-Semitic? Okay. You just mentioned that, right? Which I did. I tried to also autistically like explain to him that this is frivolous because it's, you know, you're reading too much into it and you think that there's a dog whistle there when there isn't one. And what did he do? He said, "Nope, you're anti-Semitic. I'm convinced." Okay, I guess it's over at that point, right? Or whenever I debunked something that he mentioned, he would recognize it and then go, "This is too boring. Let's move on. Don't you want to make content?" Like, no, I don't. I don't want to make content out of this.
To my good friend Ian of 8 years, I really appreciate you weaponizing my mental health against me.
To make Ethan crash out. He's having a parasocial weird crash out. People can have crash out moments. Maybe if Ethan's able to get some help. Dude, I'm not making fun of your mental health. Every example you used was me basically saying that other people are trying to affect you. It's understandable.
Oh, yeah. I'm the Redditor that got the letter from his lawyer. He also lied about the clip being paywalled content. I posted proof on my Twitter. Yeah, I mean, he lied about virtually everything. You missed the point on Hezbollah killing 500K Syrians as a fact-running defense for ISIS, Al-Qaeda, and Assad regime. No, I didn't miss that point. I actually mentioned all of that, with the exception of Al-Qaeda, I believe. I said, when you say Hezbollah committed 500,000 deaths and sit in front of a photo of a hollowed out city that was barrel bombed, you're actually running defense for all of the deaths that ISIS and the Russian Air Force and the Assad government actually committed. I did say that. See, so here's the problem though, because it was a 5-hour long conversation, I think that gets lost in the sauce. I think a lot of people just like kind of didn't hear me, or maybe they didn't see it, or maybe I did say that. There was a lot of like semantic differences, I guess, that he tried to point out in order to draw out some kind of inconsistency. But it was ridiculous. Proof of the lie directly from his lawyer. I am licensed attorney for the copyright. Ethan debates anti-Semitic Sneeko fan. The work is exclusively available on my client's YouTube channel. The infringing clip is derived from timestamp of the work. The infringing clip is a separate copy of the work and is not an embed of the original. Rather, the infringing clip appears to reside on Reddit servers. My client has not authorized the creation. So it wasn't even a paywalled content. Is that what it is? Ethan and Dan confirmed that posting the snark will get you banned. The infringing post. The infringing post contains a clip, the infringing clip, from my client's copyrighted video entitled Ethan Debates Anti-Semitic Sneeko Fan. By the way, even if it was paywalled content, I still think it's ridiculous. It's a frivolous lawsuit. It's a frivolous lawsuit directly created as a way to extort and also put pressure on people who, you know, do not have the financial opportunity or the financial circumstances to fight back against a much wealthier person who has the time to engage in frivolous lawsuits.
That you're going through this right now, Ethan. We all go through this.
To characterize anything I'm doing as crashing out, that I need help, that I need to get some kind of treatment, is cruel and pathetic on a level I didn't think would ever be possible of doing.
Every fucking example that you tried to smear me with was me actually pointing to something else that could be affecting you. He even brought up the clip of me saying, if you get help. We all need help. Everyone on this planet needs help. I don't care how you get it. You can wander into the jungle and go on an ayahuasca trip. I don't care how you get your help or what you define as help. But if it helps you, that would be good, because right now it doesn't seem like you're getting much help. The main criticism that I was seeing online with my video from Ethan and Hila is that I didn't mention the CPS call.
There's really just one central point that I want to make here. My good friend Ian, in his hour-long takedown, did not mention one time Child Protective Services. Not one time.
There was not even one mention of CPS.
And a lot of the clips he uses is us fired up from...
Yeah, except it turns out the CPS stuff, he also admitted in our conversation yesterday, was not tied back to Snark at all by his own admission. It's just basically something that he packaged together without any evidence whatsoever. And like a lot of people just keep going along with this. I don't understand. Even if it was Snark, I don't even understand how that would fucking tie back to me. But let's say like it just doesn't make any sense. Like these are not my subreddits. His subreddit is directly controlled by him and his moderators. And his subreddit has done virtually everything that he says Snark is doing to him. Clip of that. You have evidence that H3 Snark called CPS on you?
Did I say that?
Like random anonymous
Did I
Redditors?
say that?
Who called CPS?
What the fuck? So I don't know. Did I claim they did?
Like this is the title of their show. Snark called Child Protective Services on us. Like that doesn't make any sense. Like how can people look at this and go, man, he really presented himself in this he really presented himself as an honest broker here and he kept his composure throughout this process. It's like, okay, well, he just fucking lied about everything. You know what I mean? And I actually did retort against his lies over and over again. I was like, yes, you did. You implied it. He literally said on the podcast the day they first talked about it, the CPS agent said it was someone who knows him in real life. I don't even know the details because I don't keep up with whatever the fuck's going on in Ethan's life. That would be ridiculous if I did that. That would be insane if I did that. There's so much news happening. Like one thing that I will say, by the way, where obviously his gaslighting absolutely works on me because I'm still in that process going to go, maybe I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. One of the greatest examples of said gaslighting happened in real time in a sequence of fucking like 10 seconds, basically, where he said that I did October 7, right? Like, I know he misspoke. I understand that he misspoke. I'm maybe still giving the benefit of the doubt to Ethan, but like, yeah, he misspoke. I heard that and I said, what do you mean? I did October 7? What are you saying? And he quickly said, oh, are you hearing stuff? Are you hearing stuff? And he fucking gaslit me in real time.
The issue, my friend.
Like, that's so fucking crazy. Like, how is that not an immediate reaction? How is that not, like, that being the immediate reaction, how is that not ringing any alarm bells in any of the girly pop nation's minds that like maybe he's the one who's the narcissistic manipulator?
My friend, the issue at hand is your behavior.
No, I think the issue at hand is the genocide. No, this isn't the clip that I'm looking at. You even said you don't even know where he lives too, so how could you even be the one to do it? Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it thinks it's me. Oh, this is the one, yeah. On this, why have they not led to any real prosecution?
They're dead. They're fucking dead, you moron. What do you mean?
First-hand testimony in this regard.
They killed all the fucking Hamas operatives in Israel.
I killed them?
What? Why are you
saying
dead? They're fucking dead, you moron. What do you mean?
First-hand testimony in this regard.
They killed all the fucking Hamas operatives in Israel.
I killed them?
What? Why are you
saying
okay?
You killed them?
I said they. Why the fuck would I say you killed them? That's insanely stupid. Are you okay? Hallucinating.
You shouldn't retweet it though, because since you agreed he misspoke, brother. If you don't understand that the main point of contention here is that he immediately went to gaslight me and caused me to believe him instantly, okay? He immediately went to gaslight me and I believed him. That's the point here, that like his first response instantly is to not go, wait, I might have misspoke, but instead to go, no, I didn't. You're fucking stupid. Are you crazy? Are you crazy? Are you crashing out? Like, come on, dude. Like, that shows me being charitable to him even in that fucking moment where he's like smearing me with the worst smears possible. Come on, chatter.
The day that CPS came to us.
So like
without even explaining that at least that's the context, it's pretty cowardly.
I wonder why I wouldn't mention the CPS call. Could it be that the CPS call happened the same day that you were shit-talking me and I didn't have any chance to defend myself? You just immediately, in the same podcast, right next to each other, said, CPS call was very traumatic. And then you said, fuck Ian and Anissa. And you linked those together, you kind of layered those flavors, and then Anissa and I got a bunch of harassment. We had nothing to do with the CPS call. What are all these fucking comments on your Reddit saying, like, it happened because of the CPS call? I don't entirely blame...
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, there's a lot of... You know how, like, there's the double Nakba situation that Ethan engaged in defense of the inception of the state of Israel, saying that Arab anti-Semitism caused Jews to become Zionist, a horrifying thing to say, especially when you're talking about the planned expulsion of Palestinians in comparison to other countries that are not related, right? Other Arab nations that you can only attribute to the same kind of fucking sentiment if you are an anti-Arab racist. There is a lot of there's a lot of this going on here as well. There's like, oh, you did the CPS call actually. Like, it turns into we don't know who called CPS to actually Hasan and iDubbbz called CPS in the minds of his audience. They literally go around being like, well, your audience called CPS. That's why he's actually frazzled. And it's fucking crazy to just like attribute this kind of shit. Like, if Ethan, God forbid, got into a fucking car accident tomorrow and came out and said, I got into a car crash because I hit I got into a car crash with a fucking snarker without any evidence whatsoever, and then attributed that to me, everyone would say I did the car crash. What are we doing? Like, things are happening completely beyond my control that I don't even know about, that I'm fucking oblivious to, that I'm not interested in covering even in any way, shape, or form. And he basically just will use any and everything that has happened in his life that I also think are unconscionable and totally inconsiderate from the parties that actually engaged in, that tried to cause harm to him directly, is somehow my fault. When I'm the one, oddly enough, Asmongold seems to believe the CPS call came from him. Yeah, of course they believe that.
Your audience for getting confused, because number one, it's a fucking cult, and number two, you can't even get the timeline straight. So if anyone's watching your dumbass, their brain is also going to get scrambled.
Be friends as long as they're getting something out of it. So again, he's not showing the context. What was the okay, I'll play this part. Did you guys ever find the context of what I was talking about?
Struggling to recall the context of him shit talking our intentions as friends
here, because I feel like I wasn't even talking about him. I could be wrong. I just don't remember ever saying like. If I did say that,
I thought you were talking about them, about Anissa and Ian in that clip.
That's the same clip of when CPS was called.
Yeah.
Same clip.
It's part of the same conversation.
You completely wiped your brain of what happened during the CPS stream. That's not my fucking fault. That's no one else's fault but yours.
All I wanted for you to do was say the bare minimum of like, hey, this is fucked up. This is not true about CPS, whatever. Like the bare minimum. It came up because they were talking about it on their fucking podcast. By the way, they're the ones that like started this conversation by talking about it on the podcast. Be like, hey, I'm not getting involved.
Yeah, look, extreme timeline confusion. We expressed sympathy for Ethan and Hila on our podcast 4 days after he attacked us.
I think that was their response after you guys initially called them out.
This is what I was talking about. You cannot
like that's also a huge issue is Ethan can't remember 90% of the shit he says himself. I know, but like why is his audience treating him like he can? Why is his audience treating this as though it's deliberate or as though like this is actually what took place? This is my question. This doesn't make any sense. He goes back and forth on all of his positions. It is incredibly inconsistent. Even if we're going to attribute it to his memory loss or something, I find that very strange that other people are taking them seriously and other people are going around and constantly fucking complaining about it. Like, H3 claimed the 110 Insta posts in January is fake. No, I already showed the data dump. Okay, I already showed it on my channel, and then immediately they were like, "Well, the person who shared this is like, who is this person? Let's go dox them." Like they have one speed. They literally always are just like, "Let's dox the person. Let's dox the person. Anyone and everyone." We've just basically forgotten the fact that it was so ridiculous that Ethan himself couldn't believe it. His own depravity. Understand that Ethan himself could not in that moment believe his own mania, so much so that he turned around and said, "What, since 2023? 110 Instagram stories since 2023? Nope. Since 2025."
Have something terrible happen, be like, yes, let's make some content, and then shit talk your friends of 8 years.
I'm so fired up, I don't even know what to do with myself, which is why I'm crying. On the other hand, I don't know if that's a good state to be in life.
That's that Elon kind of spitting.
And a lot of the clips he uses is us fired up from the day that CPS came to us.
For anyone confused about the timeline, Ethan was talking shit about us on his Instagram before any CPS shit. He was also talking shit about us on his podcast before any CPS visit. On March 7th, CPS visits Ethan and Hila, and that same day, they decide, let's do our podcast, and let's have the topic be the CPS visit and how distraught we are about that. And then right next to that, right after it, you guys talk about me and Anissa. But you don't just talk about us. You shit talk us, and you imply that we're friends with people who are doing this, who are the ones who are harassing you.
Do you have evidence that H3 Snark called CPS on you?
Did I say
like
that?
Random anonymous Redditors?
Did I say that?
Wait, what's the...
I said they're primarily responsible for harassing me.
Who called CPS?
What the fuck? So, I don't know.
To be honest, I'm very proud that I didn't immediately jump to Ethan and Hila's defense, because when you...
Is airing CPS call normal at all? No, that's the other side of this. I'm not going to criticize content creators for talking about the deep and personal harm that they withstand as a byproduct of being online content creators. I'm not going to criticize them, to each their own. But under normal circumstances, myself included, by the way, this is something that every content creator deliberately keeps to themselves because it creates copycats. Okay. And by that, I don't mean CPS calls. I mean swatting, doxing, stalkers showing up to your house. Things of that nature happen in the background and are often not discussed. There's a reason why even LSF, which is a horrible, awful fucking community online, brigaded to oblivion by literally and completely controlled by a guy who is in Destiny's own community. Even that fucking instrument of mass harassment still doesn't post about swattings. And the reason for why they don't do that is because when you post about swattings or you talk about swattings, that creates an even more dangerous environment for all content creators, because it creates copycats and there's basically nothing you can do about it in that circumstance. I mean, there are some things you can do about it, but so I'm not, if they want to talk about their own, the people that are attacking them, that it's on them, that's, if they choose that this is appropriate to talk about, then that's on them. But I'm telling you why most people, myself included, don't talk about this shit.
Look into the story, it actually looks a lot shittier for Ethan and Hila. And I do mean that literally. There was this H3 stream where Ethan...
Dude, how come you didn't prepare evidence against Ethan's lies? Is such a funny fucking thing to get mad at me over. Because I did. And I did retort. And he just said, no, you're lying. What am I to do in that situation? He's not pulling clips. What am I supposed to do? He's controlling the clips. It's like yelling at me because of the structure that was designed so that he could do a fucking faucet of Gish galloping, Mott Bailey, and fucking endless sequence of lies. There are so many instances where he even openly admitted that he lied. But I guess you didn't pay attention to that at all. I guess you did not pay attention to that part of the conversation where he would be like, yeah, I'm wrong. My bad. Let's move on. I'm bored. This is unwatchable. What am I? Okay. You're mad at me because he just kept lying or openly admitting that he was wrong in an effort to move on. What should I have done? Like, he openly admitted to smearing me. He openly admitted to engaging in bad faith in the conversation. After that concession, what am I supposed to do?
Was dumping as per usual. He was talking about his own health. He was talking about his caca breath, his dog having diarrhea, his dog having giardia.
Olive has giardia. It's a bacterial infection in the intestines that makes you have diarrhea.
His child running around putting things in their mouth.
Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has giardia.
The whole family possibly having giardia.
Oh,
and now Ela has giardia.
Shut. For real?
And now I think this morning I had diarrhea.
Oh my God.
What can I do to not get it from you?
I'm trying
Because I'm not trying to get it.
No, it's extremely ridiculous to get. You have to ingest my poop.
Talking about the viscosity of his child's shit.
And although meanwhile he is covered in viscous, low viscosity diarrhea.
He mentioned diarrhea a lot.
Crazy diarrheas like in the middle of the night. All the time he's having these crazy diarrheas. You wash your hands as best you can, but these are really nasty diarrheas. And then extremely foul smelling diarrheas.
So of course, Ethan, having made so many enemies over the years, other people react to his content. And when other people see that he's talking about his children getting giardia from dog poop.
Sonny's crawling around. He's putting everything in his mouth. He's at that age. He has giardia.
People are quite reasonably concerned. And so, yes, anyone who...
What is this show, man? What is like what the fuck? What's the purpose of content for this? Like, I don't I'm having a hard time trying to comprehend what is happening on this show. Like, every time I see a new clip, I'm like, what? I mean, I guess I talk about silly shit as well. You know, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what Ian's point is going to be here, but I will say, regardless, like, no, I don't think that, like, I don't think that there is any validity to CPS calls to Ethan by virtue of how many professional people he has hired and how much wealth he has in terms of taking care of his children. There is no world in which, if there was a CPS call and they even found enough evidence to actually take his children away, that his children would actually have a better life under the guidance of the state rather than amongst his family. Like that, I just, like, it's ridiculous. Okay, it is completely fucking ridiculous. I don't want you guys to even entertain this notion. It's crazy. Foster care is a hellish nightmare. Okay, and the standard for